5 Scary Reddit Stories. The abandoned house. The abandoned house on the outskirts of town had always been a source of curiosity and fear for the locals. It was said to be haunted, and no one had entered its walls in years. But one group of teenagers, looking for a thrill on Halloween night, decided to break in and see what secrets the house held. As they entered the house, they could feel a chill in the air. It was as if the very walls were alive with a malevolent energy. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet, and the musty smell of old furniture filled their nostrils. As they explored the house, they found that it was filled with strange artifacts and mementos. There were old photographs, tattered books, and even a rusted old wheelchair. But as they moved deeper into the house, they began to feel as if they were being watched. The creaking of the floorboards grew louder, and the shadows seemed to dance in the corners of their vision. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread settled over them. Suddenly, they heard a sound from upstairs. It was a low, guttural growl, like nothing they had ever heard before. They froze, unsure of what to do. As they crept up the stairs, the growling grew louder. It was coming from one of the rooms at the end of the hallway. As they entered the room, they found themselves face to face with a creature they could only describe as a monster. It was hunched over, with long, spindly arms and a face that seemed to be contorted in agony. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its breath came in ragged, rasping gasps. The teenagers were paralyzed with fear, unsure of what to do. But then the creature lunged at them, its claws flashing in the dim light. They ran for their lives, screaming as they fled the house. As they burst through the front door, they looked back to see the creature standing in the doorway, watching them with those glowing eyes. From that day on, the abandoned house was avoided by all who knew of its existence. The teenagers never spoke of their encounter, but the memory of that Halloween night would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Not a true story. I hope you enjoyed the Wendigo. It was a normal night, me just sitting in the ranger station. But you probably want to know who I am. I'm a ranger at the national park. I like pizza and the outdoors, which is why I got this job, but now I regret even thinking about it. You see, lately people have been going missing. I don't know why, but some of the rangers have to. It's quite scary, especially since the screaming started every night. Me and my partner John would hear these inhuman screams. The first time we heard them, we got in our truck and started driving with spotlights in all directions. We didn't see anything cause of a strange bank of fog mystery appearing after a ranger named Louise stopped talking. At first we thought her radio was dead, but when we got to her outpost it was wrecked, nothing taken. But Louise was gone, blood everywhere, tables flipped, a few windows broken. That's when we picked up our rifles and called in on her disturbing disappearance to the police department. They didn't do anything but send 2 of the worst cops they got. They didn't care about the blood dragged across the floor, out the window, into the woods. We just got back in our truck and went back to our posts, but we slept lightly with our rifles beside our beds. The next day comes 3 more rangers missing. Same stuff, tables flipped, windows broken, trash everywhere, blood leading into the forest. But this time there was a video from one of the rangers. We didn't see much, but we heard the same inhuman screams as the night before. Woman staring at me through the window. Basically, my house was built about 50 years ago. I'm pretty sure at least someone died of natural causes here, but not 100% sure. Anyways, I have multiple times I've noticed or heard things like when I'm alone I'll hear creaking. That's pretty normal though, since the house is old. I've actually only got to things I think might be real. A few months ago I was outside doing chores about 5 or 6 in the evening. I actually live with my sister and mom when I went to go get my dog, who was on the other side of the yard. In the corner of my eyes I saw a woman staring at me, and when I walked off I could still feel her staring. Creeped me out a bit, but I ignored it, thinking it was my mom or sister joking around with me. About an hour later, when we are eating dinner, I ask who was staring at me. My mom and sister both confusingly tell me that they were upstairs. My mom cleaning and my sister was watching her TV. When I told them I saw someone looking at me, they both looked shocked. We choose not to talk about that too much. One time, I had a friend over to spend the night. We both stayed up probably till 1 or 2 in the morning playing on my Xbox and watching our favorite YouTuber. The next morning, while eating cereal, he asked if we were walking around at all. When we said no, he said it was nothing and changed the subject. Later I asked him what that was about. And he told me when he was asleep he heard large, heavy footsteps. They started from the bottom of the steps and slowly worked their way up. He said he could hear them approaching the door. And all along he had his eyes tight shut and was pretending to be asleep. He said that for at the very least an hour. He felt it staring at him. After sitting there pretending to sleep, he finally actually fell asleep. The first one I'm sure of. But the second one I'm about 80% sure of, as my friend used to tell stories when we were much smaller. His reaction seemed so genuine though. My house break-in. I live in a 2-story house and I usually stay up late. Until about 3 to 4 a.m. One night after I got off my Xbox and turned all the lights downstairs off, I began to walk up my stairs. My stairs have railings that if you touch they vibrate and make a rumbling sound. As I reached the top of the stairs and began to head to my room, I hear the rails move. I live alone. I look back but it was too dark to see anything, so I just brushed it off. As me just hearing things, I went into my room and got ready for bed. I was still a little bit uneasy, so I kept my gun on my nightstand. I paid there restless for about 15 minutes. Just as I begin to doze off, I hear my bedroom door open and I slowly reach for my gun. I also grab my flashlight and point it in the direction I'm pointing my gun. I waited a second before I turned the flashlight on, because I was overtaken with fear. I finally got enough courage to turn on the flashlight, and as soon as I do, I see a man about 6'1" wearing dirty clothes and a bushy beard in my room. He screams psychotically and charges me in my bed. I discharge 5 bullets into his chest, and he collapsed to the floor, still struggling to get me. I jump over him, running out of my room, as he still uses his arms to crawl in my direction. I hear him scream at me with blood curdling in his throat, "I will still find you." After I called the police, and they arrived, he died of his bullet wounds. I moved away from that city and got a new house somewhere else. But I always think about his last dying words, "I will still find you." Housemates. I've always been a bit sensitive as a child. I was always able to notice things others in my family don't. I would often hear voices in the house calling either my brothers or me. Or like there would be shadows walking around in the kitchen, dining area, or the living room. Something peeking in my younger brother's and I's room in the middle of the night. Stuff like that. I'm used to them. I know it sounds silly, especially since we actually live in a pretty small house for a family of 8, and it's far from the old, refurbished houses with lots of history that are usually haunted with these things. I thought that I was the only one at home who noticed them, but apparently my older sister and second older brother did too. My sister would joke around about how she would often see a creature crawling on our kitchen and dining room floor at night, or how a shadow would stand in my brother's and I's room in the wee hours. I was a bit skeptical about it at first, since I thought they were too exaggerated. My brother would also talk about how he would see doppelgangers of our siblings in some areas of the house, but one evening, I was up really late into the night, I think around 1 or 2 a.m., playing computer games as a 14-year-old, when I heard our sofa creak. Mind you, I was the only one up at the time, and in the living room. I was starting to feel really nervous, since I know we had others in the house, because I feel them all the time, but that was the very first time they or it or whatever made its presence really obvious. I just slowly turned my head to my right where our sofa was, and I was freaking scared. I just saw the middle of our sofa just slowly sink, as if someone was sitting in there, but there was actually nobody there. I was shaken. I just directly shut down our computer, just went straight to our bedroom and forced myself to sleep.